Welcome, my friends, to another episode of the Global CTE podcast. I'm Sylvester Chisom, your host, and this is the space where we really try to wrap a blanket of goodwill around the career tech education community and highlight those who are really doing the work, the best practices, the thought leaders, all sharing their information so we can all prepare our students for success in the global marketplace. Today is no different, but it's a special treat. We have my great friend, Petteri Elo, who is all the way from Finland. Now, let me tell you about Petteri. Petteri is an educator from Finland. He's an expert in combining theory and practice. He has an extensive career in teaching, training, and hands-on pedagogical and curriculum development. He turns his innovative and experimental practices with students into engaging and thought-provoking training concepts for educators worldwide. Literally, he is traveling the world sharing these resources. As a trainer and consultant, Petteri has been praised for his passion, energy, and expertise on issues such as curriculum development, implementation, and innovative pedagogy from various viewpoints. Petteri's way of combining theory and practice brings life to the key goals of the 21st century education. Petteri, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sylvester, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure, man. I'm really excited about this episode. I've talked to a lot of friends about this episode that I was interviewing you, and so I had some great questions that have come up. But before we jump into all of that, like, tell me, what are you up to now? Like, what are you doing these days?
Yeah, I mean, well, your intro kind of gave thank you for the nice intro, by the way, and it gave a really good sort of peek into what I am doing. And I teach part-time, and I run my training company called Peda Now, and it's basically a one-man show. And it's Peda Now, it's me, and I'm Peda Now, and that's what I do. I identify myself strongly as a teacher, but then I also am so passionate about, humbly trying to share the experiences that I have in my classroom, the reflective thoughts that I have about teaching and learning to educators worldwide. And I've been very fortunate to work in the US a lot and other parts of the world as well. And as you know, we met a couple of weeks ago when I was in St. Louis training some CT and world language teachers in one of the districts. So that's in a nutshell what I do, and I'm so happy that you decided to invite me to this podcast, and we can talk about things that we're both very passionate about.
Yeah, we had like, speaking of that, salute to our good friend Amy Boskin. She coordinated a wonderful dinner for us and with another friend from World Savvy, and it was a great conversation around education, what's happening locally in our city of St. Louis, but then nationally across the US, and then internationally. What are some things that are happening? So let's jump right into it. The question everyone wants to know, okay, what makes the Finland education system best in the world? Like, what are you all doing that's different, Petteri? Like, let's hear it.
All right. Well, now we have to remember that there is not one proven answer to this question, and somebody else might be answering this question a little differently, but there are some sort of elements that have been commonly agreed that are the strengths of our education system. And I also want to point out, before I start praising my own my Finnish education system, is that we're far from perfect, and there are so many things that we could do better and learn from other countries like US. But surely, of course, we've been doing well by any comparison, and I'll just name a few sort of components or elements that we have here that are part of the difference that there is. And first thing, again, there are people who would disagree about this, but first thing, I would say that our national core curriculum for basic education and also secondary level education is top notch, and it's it's an amazing curriculum to work with, and I truly believe, and first-hand experience is that, you know, that curriculum pushes me as a teacher exactly towards where I should be going in my mind. And also, if I listen to any, you know, conversation among scholars, leading scholars on our field, you know, internationally, those are the divisions that they talk about student-centeredness and you know, going beyond the content and really exploring concepts deeper than the surface level and not memorizing all these things. They are right there in our curriculum. And in Finland, it's all about, you know, how well can we implement this amazing curriculum, whereas in many other countries the curriculum is the problem. And people are eager to do something different, but the curriculum is a problem. So that's number one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go
ahead. Keep
do you
going.
want to add or?
Keep going. No,
Okay, all
keep
right.
going.
Yeah. Well, number two, and this is not, when I say this, I don't mean necessarily that Finnish teachers are any better than anywhere else. I'm not trying to say that, but it is a fact that in Finland, we have highly qualified teachers. All the teachers who have a permanent post or tenure must have a master's degree in education, and that teacher training program at the universities is very rigorous, and it stresses heavily on reflective teacher, and the idea that as you grow as a professional, the self-reflective piece is such an important, you know, piece in your journey in becoming, you know, growing as a professional. And that is something that I value, and that is something, when I did my teacher training back in the days, was the one, what was the biggest takeaway for me. And also, you know, the rigorous theoretical background. What is learning all about, and what happens, you know, cognitively, and all these things fascinated me, and sort of made me realize that teaching truly is a profession that not just anybody can do. You have to be a qualified teacher if you want to do it as a professional. And that sort of frame of mind, when you think about teaching profession in Finland, that's very present, and we are a respected, you know,
Right.
professional cohort of the society. And if I go to a cocktail party, I don't have to, you know, be ashamed of being a teacher. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to be ashamed of being a teacher in other places, but still, you know, talking to lawyers, doctors, whatever high-powered businessmen or women, I can say that I'm a teacher, and I get curious questions and not sort of dismissal.
So
That's
so
another thing.
the respect level is really high from a society standpoint for the educator, for the profession of being an educator.
Yeah.
That's
And yes, that's in general. But
right.
of course, we have exceptions. We have those parents who think they can do our job better, and they are very
Yeah.
obnoxious, and you know, come and tell us how to teach their kids. Of course, we have those. But I would say, and somebody might disagree, and somebody might have different experiences, but I would say that as a whole, as a society, we value the educational
I
profession
think I
a
think
lot.
that
And
makes
yeah,
I think that makes a huge difference, man. Like for
yeah.
someone who's considering a career pathway as an educator, that this is a respected profession, that you can feel good about, going into the cocktail party and having those conversations.
Sure. And the fact that, and this is often very very curious thing and striking, is that the way you say it. Like when I host American educator groups here in Helsinki, and I take them to our national agency of education, where the curriculum design is sort of happening, and I
Okay.
tell them that everybody here who works here is an educator, and our curriculum, national core curriculum, is designed by educators. They invite, all the interest groups in, and, businesses and local, whatever, parents,
Yeah.
everybody is part of the conversation, but the educators are the ones who make the decisions and design the curriculum. And that, as I believe, is not the case always in your
Yeah.
country. There
Let me
are
let
many
me
other
let,
industries. Yes.
you just brought up an interesting point. I want to ask you more about that. What are some of the key elements of that, the Finnish national core curriculum?
The key elements, to me as a teacher, I think about, from the teacher perspective all the time, because that's who I am. I'm a teacher, and the key element is that our curriculum is very skill orientated, and the backbone of the whole national core curriculum is like the Finnish version of 21st century skills. 7 different competencies, we call them transversal competencies, and those form the backbone. And those 7 competencies, when you think about subject specific curricula, then those 7 competencies are sort of made or written out subject specific, so that the primary goals for teaching and learning for each subject are very skill orientated. And then we have content sort of learning objectives. I'm thinking about the visual presentation down here, but the primary things that I see as a science teacher, for instance, are skill-based learning objectives, like, practicing cause and effect thinking and using it as a problem-solving tool, or practicing how to execute scientific experiments and practice hypothetical thinking, and these kind of things, which are not content specific, but they're general thinking skills, general sort of subject specific skills you need when you experience the subject. And then we have, like down here again, the contents, which are quite upper level. They don't go into itsy bitsy details about, like, I usually use history as an example. If we have like 5th grade history content objective or standard is Middle Ages, that's what it says in our curriculum. It doesn't give any more detail on what the students have to know about Middle Ages, because the main thing is that we learn about these skills that are connected to history, learning history, and then we will learn about Middle Ages. There is material that directs us, and we do common planning. But still, if you think about, it's not that drastic if you and me learn a little bit different contents about Middle Ages. The main thing is that we learn the skill-based learning objectives and then dig into different contents and so forth. Now, that being said, Sylvester, this is not implemented like this in all the Finnish schools. You see very traditional teaching in some schools. Some teachers, use the textbook page to page and this kind of thing. So this is the ideal. This is what the system wants us to do. It's not implemented everywhere like this.
Yeah. Okay. Right. It's like, I get it. That is where that's the target. But the schools that are on the front end, the innovative schools, I'm sure they're really pushing that skill focus pretty heavily. I'm curious. Talk to me how would you apply that framework to a career tech education curriculum or class? Just curious how you would think about that with something that's focused on the skill first.
Sure. I'm not an expert on that. As you know, I'm an elementary school teacher by training, and I've also been working a lot middle school level with different subject teachers and coaching and co-teaching. But as I understand, many of the CTE subjects are by nature very, very skill orientated. Like if you think about engineering and car workshops and all these kind of things, you naturally combine theory and practice and content and practice when you fix motors and whatever things are being done in that class. So and this is also when I was in St. Louis talking with some teachers, CT teachers, they when they were in my phenomenon-based learning workshop, they sort of they said that this is spot on. And what our couple of teachers said, that the takeaway that I got from here is building the learning processes more rigorously and more thoughtfully for the students, so that these skills and contents are even sort of it's more apparent for for the students as well, what is it that we're actually doing here and what is it that we're aiming towards. So that's, yeah,
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
like where you
currently.
I like where you're saying where you're going with it. It's just it's putting the skill as the focal point first before like you start saying like the history example you gave. It's just all these different things you have to learn about history. It's like, no, you can maybe implement it differently as long as you're covering these skills. You're going after these skills.
Yeah.
Now, I was able to actually attend your workshop, and I thought it was phenomenal. But
Thank you.
talk to me about what do you mean by what is phenomenon based learning and how does it apply for educators? Can you share a
Yeah.
little about that?
Uh, sure. That's one of my passions, definitely, and the school that I've been working at for quite a few years now is actually one of the front runners in phenomenon-based learning in Helsinki, and we've done a lot of work, and I've been very involved in that sort of development work of making phenomenon-based learning work, because it's not the easiest framework to implement, especially in the subject teacher sort of a
Mhm.
framework where you have different teachers for all the subjects. So phenomenon based learning is part of our national core curriculum, and it's a form of project based learning, and the key is that it's always interdisciplinary. If you want to call something phenomenon based learning, then it's interdisciplinary by nature. And secondly, it's I know student centered is a vague term, but what in this context, what student centeredness means is that, projects where teachers design most of the things, the contents and the process and the assessment, and even, what should be presented in the end products. Those can be very good learning experiences as well. This is not a matter of good or bad here,
Okay.
but that's not phenomenon based learning. Phenomenon based learning is by nature student centric in a way that you leave room for the student voice, choice, finding the angles that really interest students, under the umbrella of whatever we're digging into. And maybe, Sylvester, we could go into an example now about the sustainable development.
Yeah, you
Uh,
know what? I like that because
yeah,
that was my next
yeah,
question. I love you.
yeah,
You're ahead
yeah.
of me there because
Because
how does that look like real world in the classroom? Give me an example of how that looks.
yeah, because it's easier to explain with a concrete example. So this is like a phenomenon based learning project that we've been running for our middle schoolers. The umbrella, the phenomena is sustainable development, which is very
Okay.
complex. Of course, it's extremely complex, topic or phenomena. So, and our seventh or eighth graders don't usually understand fully, or even they might some might not even understand what the term means, although it is embedded into our national core curriculum, and a lot of, of course, it's present everywhere, but for students to understand the term and what does it actually mean, we need to make the connection first. So this is like a science, more interdisciplinary project that we run, where we have physics and chemistry and geography and a little bit of math, involved. So what we do first, we start building the base understanding of what does sustainable development mean, and we sort of choose viewpoints from the subject sort of specific perspective. So we start the project being like subject specific and just digging into different viewpoints of phenomenon based learning, very teacher sort of orientated planning there. But the idea is to spark interest, get the students have the aha moments of, okay, this is what it means, and this is what it means, connecting to my life, and we're designing these lessons to be, thought provoking and something more than just, teacher explaining what things are, but very sort of active learning. And then after we have built that base knowledge, which
Okay.
hopefully has already sparked that interest, we jump into what we call a progressive inquiry model sort of a research process. And there we get to the essence of phenomenon-based learning, because there we start collaboratively brainstorming. So what is it that interests us as a cohort of students here about this phenomenon, and start, chopping down ideas, forming groups that we want to really dig into the natural disasters and what's happening around the globe, regarding global warming and natural disasters. Somebody wants to be more sort of micro level and think about, for instance, we've had a project where some they happened to be boys, and they dug into how they all played football or soccer, as you call it. So what kind of carbon emissions are there when we drive to practice? If we carpool, can we cut our emissions, and all these kind of things? Of course, teachers facilitating, helping as much as needed, and pulling back as much as can, but still, the learning process was designed so that every single student, every single group were using and practicing the same kind of a skill-based learning objectives along the way, using those skills to take forward their learning process, but they were digging into very, very different contexts.
Different projects.
And
okay, so let me
go ahead.
So I'm really hearing a lot of emphasis on, we're focused on the skill, but how we get there, we're okay with allowing the kids to come up with their own ideas, giving them choice and voice, as long as it's focused on getting us to the learning of that particular skill, right? And so the teacher becomes just like the facilitator. How can I help you? How can I guide you in the direction of your learning journey?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, because what we have learned that students, but we cannot expect that students have, let's use like art of questioning, for instance. That's an easy example. One might think that it's very easy to create a research question, but if you think a little deeper about that, if you think about, professional researchers, they spend half a year, fine-tuning their research question so that it will yield the kind of research that they're looking for. And so that is a skill where we can't just, facilitate in a way. We have to sort of model and practice with our students very often. How do you create different kinds of question? What does a question, lower level, let's use Bloom's taxonomy here, lower level question, what do they look like? Are they good research questions? Are you going to spend, next 3 weeks researching a what question? Probably not, because you're going to spend half an hour researching a what question. But if you go, if we practice how to make more sophisticated questions, and those kind of questions that are not too complex for us as 7th graders, because that's also very discouraging if that question is too complex. And if I let, as a teacher, I mean, this is a fine line, of course, because sometimes, something that I think intuitively that is too hard for my students will then be they will be flying high. But still, judging by my experience, if you can right away see that the research, that the materials and everything that they're going to find for this question is too scientific, too higher level to understand even for me, then I should be redirecting my students to something that will enable them to have fun in learning and digging into, and them still having the choice and the voice and the angle there. If you see what I'm saying. So it's not just facilitating, it's also rigorously modeling and practicing these different kind of skills, and then they use these skills in their learning process.
So it's a both. It is, the modeling is very important, as well as the facilitating, not just totally stepping
Yes.
away, but you need to model it first. Now you just brought up the word fun. Now some people believe that, you know, it's not good education, it's not high quality education if it's fun. Like, what are your thoughts on fun and, you know, and the lessons and instruction? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the craziest argument to make, is that it's, if it's fun, it's not learning. Because if you think about, you know, anything that you do professionally, or if I think about anything that I do professionally, the most productive and most innovative I am when I'm having fun. That's for sure. Or if I have a yard project, like I might
Mhm.
have talked to you about my
Yeah,
deck project. I
yeah,
mean, that was fun. That was challenging as heck with my wife, but that was fun and rewarding.
yeah.
And I mean, if you can combine fun and rigorous learning of things, then I mean that's where we should be aiming most of the time.
100%. Now listen,
Yeah.
um, I did want to ask you, this is a question about, it's about education, but more so the ending result, about work. And I was curious how people, your thoughts, your perspective on how people in Finland view work as it relates to this. As I was doing my research for this interview, I saw Finland was crowned the happiest country in the world for the 5th consecutive year. And that's according to the World Happiness Report. Now, I'm just curious, how do you believe people in Finland view their work as it relates to quality of life and happiness?
Yeah, that's a curious thing, because Finns could not believe first time that we were sort of named the happiest country in the world. We were like, what? We're not that happy. So, and because Finns are like, not all Finns. Again, I'm generalizing, but
Right,
compared
right.
to Americans, for instance, Finns are often more introvert, not smiling as much, not laughing out loud as much. But so to me, it is quite a mystery why Finland is so happy, but or seems to be, we seem to be very happy. But I would think, okay, here is one thing. If you think about, I was just, you know, talking to my superintendent friend in Virginia, and I asked
Okay.
about, you know, vacation time for administrators. And he was like, well, yeah, I took a week off, and it was kind of hard to take a week off over summer. And I mean, the Finnish, even, you know, even people who work a lot and have, you know, high power positions take vacations, and they might be off for 4 weeks, 3 weeks over summer. Then you have your Christmas and so forth. So there is balance. Again, generalizing, there are people
Right.
who overwork themselves and work all the time and so forth,
Mhm.
and teachers are stressed here as well. But still, I mean, I think Finns, compared to many other nations, can separate the work and free time better.
Mhm.
That's one thing that I would think. And then the I don't know, is the pace of life in general a little slower here? That's purely guessing. Purely guessing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
nature is very plays a very big part. Like I'm right now looking from my window to a forest, basically,
I love it.
and that, you know, nature plays a big part in many of the Finns' daily life, and, you know, things like that. And sauna, I don't know if there's
Yeah.
that has anything to do with it, but all the Finnish homes basically have a sauna, and that's a very
Really.
relaxing place to go to
That's
and just
interesting. I
chill.
didn't
And
I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's pretty cool. And I like the nature connection. I know that's personally something that's
yeah.
important to
And
me,
you,
to find
yeah,
time to
you asked,
connect with nature.
yeah, yeah, you actually asked me about work, and I went on to different things,
No, but
but
it was a good answer because you took it to like more work-life balance, like the connection of work
yeah,
to life, which we sometimes you want to separate it, but you really can't because it plays a big part. Most people spend a lot of their active hours during the day working on something or doing some version of work, or ultimately they will. Um,
mhm.
Yeah, I do. I want to go back to something though. Like you mentioned it, phenomenon-based learning and the connection to interdisciplinary. You say it's just naturally interdisciplinary. What are some in your view, your perspective, some best practices around implementing interdisciplinary curriculum?
I mean, you have to. From my experience, again, it requires quite a bit of work often to get the teacher cohort working together, especially in the subject teacher world
Mhm.
of middle and high school and vocational schools. So that's the first thing. If you have a group of teachers who don't really see the value in collaborating in this way, some teachers see an immense value in collaborating within the subject with colleagues and co-plan and innovating within one subject area. But first you have to build that sort of trust between
Mhm.
teachers, that they trust each other, they respect each other, and they feel that, okay, when I start working with this cross or interdisciplinary cohort, there is something that these people value in me, and I can surely learn from them and get that kind of collective efficacy kind of a frame of mind built. And that's a leadership question, again,
Right.
facilitating that kind of time in schools. And then when that is there, then it truly is about curriculum alignment, of course, because a teacher has to feel that this makes sense to me when I think about my curriculum. If I feel that this is not, I'm not fulfilling or meeting my curricular standards in this project, then I feel that let's just get it out of the way and I can go back to my regular teaching. So you
Mhm.
have to make interdisciplinary learning regular teaching. And that's something that we have quite well succeeded in my school, or the school that I've been working at for years, that it's not like something extra or something extraordinary that we do. It's part of the regular sort of cycle of the school year. We have these projects here and there, and first graders are doing it now, and then second
Mhm.
and whatever. So those are the key things. And then when you have done that curriculum alignment, especially from the skill-based learning objective viewpoint, then you can
Right.
start sort of building the learning processes. And if you have that frame of mind that, okay, even if the content that these students are digging into in my chemistry lesson is more biology heavy, they're still practicing the same skills that I have in my chemistry curriculum. So I am actually sort of meeting my curricular goals, although the
Mhm.
content is not. So it's a new way of thinking how to teach your subject, basically. And when
Yeah.
you find that sort of switch in your head and brain, then it starts making sense, and then you start feeling that it's worthwhile and fun,
Yeah.
collaborating across the
Yeah. That's it,
the
man.
subject
That's
area.
it. That's a great example. I mean, you really laid it out from the leadership standpoint down to the classroom facilitation standpoint. I have a surprise for you. Our friend Amy Boskin has a question. Amy Boskin, director of CTE in the Parkway School District. She says, "Can you please ask Petteri this? What needs to change in the U.S. education system to create more workforce readiness?" Any thoughts on that?
Well, this is a really tough question for well, I've been to US fair amount, I have to
Right.
say, and I've been working with several school districts in several states. But I still, when I answer this, I want you listeners all just just thinking about, you can disagree with me and this might not be even a right analysis, but I'm just going to
Yeah.
say what comes to my mind, but with caution. Okay. So I would think that the main thing is that the society, it's not the educators as such, because I believe that you educators already value the career path education, along with high school.
Mhm.
But as a society, I've learned and observed that, high school and the college route is still something that is very much expected from everybody. And it's college talk, from
Yep.
quite early years onwards. And that switch from society perspective, that it's a respectable choice to get a degree in a trade alongside, maybe because in Finland you might just get the degree in your trade and not the high school
Mhm.
diploma. I know you have dual diplomas. Let's talk about that. But it has to be a respectable choice by the society that, after getting your high school and your vocational school, dual diploma, you can start working. You don't have to
Mhm.
go to college. If you're passionate about, your trade, whatever it is, car mechanics or welding or hairdressing or whatever that might be, go and develop your trade. And then if after 2 years you want to go to college, you go to college, if it's possible for you, of course. I know it's immensely expensive in your country, but still, that's the main thing that I would say. And I would guess that many of you would agree with me.
That's a great response, man. Great response, and I like how you just made the connection to society because it plays such a big role. You're so right. It's like from early on, it's like college, college, college. What college will you go to? What college will you go to? When
Mhm.
honestly, that's not even the end game. It's like you go to college for said career or profession or job, but the emphasis should be put on that part, like who you desire to be, like what are your
With
passions, what are your
passion,
interests that we can
interest,
explore,
or
and if that requires college, then yes, but the focus should be on that. And that's a huge societal
huge
mental shift, but you're starting to see it play out though now, especially in the career tech education space. You're starting to see that shift.
shift.
um
Yeah.
Last question for you, man. Like you share so many great
You share
gems and insights. I know you're busy traveling the world. If someone wants to get on your schedule or try to get you to come and offer some professional development or some workshops with their school district, how do they get in touch with you? You want to share any insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, very easy. You can go to my website, pedanow.com, and you can find my contact info from there. And yes, I'm very eager to work with any schools or school districts anywhere in the world. Just, figuring out what is it that our kids need nowadays, and it usually is quite universal. And the coolest thing, I'll tell you, Sylvester, the coolest thing in what I do for me is that, I'm a one-man show. Pedanau is me. So what I can do very easily is to sort of customize all my services within, of course, my expertise.
Right.
I don't, but my expertise are quite wide. To customize, to really, start, exploring with the potential client, what are your visions on your school district, and what is it that you need, and then figuring out if my expertise, meet those needs, and then just going crazy with the solutions that we can do. For instance, in couple of school districts in US, I've actually done co-teaching with teachers. I've done co-planning,
Really.
online co-planning of very innovative lessons, student-centric lessons, using pedagogical strategies that the teachers have not been using before,
Yeah.
and then having a week on site or whatever amount of time on site, and actually going into the classrooms and running those lessons with the teachers and reflecting afterwards, what are the things that we saw in the students, and how did it feel, and so forth. And that is inspiring for me, and it has been very impactful for the teachers as well. And you know, any kind of solutions, and that's fun again. I keep on bringing fun, but I mean, that's such a cool thing to start designing something out of the box.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm always looking for.
I love it. I love it. So again, the website, say the website for me one more time.
Pedanow.com.
All right, pettinow.com. Listen, I encourage anyone who's listening to check my friend out. He's doing great work. I've seen it firsthand. So just the thought, the perspective. Sometimes it's good to hear how other people are doing things, man, just so that you can add those insights into your school district, your classroom, or your planning activities. So thank you so much, Petteri, for joining us, sharing your knowledge, sharing your insights. Hey, to all my listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you like it, share it, subscribe to the podcast so you're the first to know. And remember, as I always say, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. Until the next episode, peace.